appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Also subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. Ladies and gentlemen, I have something exclusive for you tonight, and I'm talking about exclusive, real exclusive. As I was looking at the Art of Dialogue's feed the other day on X, there was a picture of the escorts that Diddy and Cassie hired, allegedly. And I came across a picture of my friend, Edmond Laurent. Ladies and gentlemen, Edmond Laurent grew up as an island kid, right? Me and Edmond first met on Venice Beach. I'm gonna show you Edmond. This is Edmond right here. Me and Edmond first met on Venice Beach some 20 some odd years ago. Almost 30, I would say almost 30 years ago. Almost 30 years ago. And when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, the story is true. Edmond was a homeless dude when he came here. He was homeless when he first got here to California. Edmond used to sleep on the beach at Venice Beach, right? You know, when he told his story, like nobody believed it because Edmond was so handsome. I'm gonna drop something on you real fast, boom, boom. And this is how far Edmond had come, but I'm gonna bring you back, but I'm gonna drop this on you real fast. Check this out, watch this. You ready? You ready? Check this out. This is Edmond and 2Pac. Ladies and gentlemen, Edmond was in California Love. He was in the California Love video. So this goes to show you how far he's come in the connection, right? And how things come full circle. Now, I'm gonna get back to that in a minute. I'm gonna give you some more game on that in a minute. But check this out. So Edmond came here from the islands, from the Caribbean, and like I said, you know, on the quest to find his real mother that led him on a life and the journey, twists and turns, from living on the beach. Like I told you, he used to sleep on the beach on Venice Beach. He used to walk down Venice Beach with Speedos on and it's like, yo, flip-flops and sometimes barefoot, you know what I mean? Handsome young man. Like I said, all the ladies like down in Venice Beach, they would be like, who is that guy? Who is that guy? Who is that guy? You know, he was looking like $1 million, you know, looked like a star, if you will. But like I say, they didn't really know the underpinnings of what was going on in his life, right? Edmond is one of the escorts alleged to be hired, and I wouldn't even say alleged to be hired. He was one of the escorts involved in the Diddy case, and he's a friend of mine. So check this out. Edmond came here. He was homeless, a youth. He was hired as a mime, right? Then the opportunities, hosting like television. He did some acting, you know, music videos, modeling. Like I said, but you know, those things kind of slow down in LA for a while, right? And then that's when Edmond found himself caught up in the exotic world of, you know what I mean, being a male prostitute, being an escort, and all of those things, right? And you know, just trying to, you know, make a living. So now, I say that to say this, and I go back here. So the connection, just to show you how far he had come before he had made that turn to becoming, this is Edmond right here. In 1996, and he was actually in the California Love video. And him and 2Pac right here. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody's ever been able to talk about this. Like I said, I had, and I'm going to show you some other things, right? This is exclusive in the namesake of, watch this. Now this is, you won't find this nowhere else, right? This picture right here, hold on, but check this out. Watch this. This is Edmond's one of his business cards. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see This is the business card that he gave to me, like one of the few business cards. He was always, hey man, I got a new business card. Check out my, Edmond was a personal trainer also. Edmond had many jobs. I could honestly say that he was a hustler. You know what I mean? He was a hustler. He was a hustler. You see how his physique was, and this was when he was younger. You know what I mean? So, like I said, that he got a little bit older, but this one he was younger, right? So you can imagine, like I said, he walking down Venice Beach, and if anybody know about Venice Beach on Saturday and Sunday, you know what I mean? Shout out to Alfred and Seymour, my partners. If y'all know who Alfred Seymour too is a crowd, they used to perform down on Venice Beach, and they used to do their little show down on Venice Beach, and it was packed. If anybody know about that, but this is one of the cards that Edmond had gave me. You know what I mean? Like he would always, hey man, I got a new card, I got new headshots, I got da 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 da, right? So this is exclusive right here. You ain't gonna see this nowhere else. Yeah, you're not gonna see this nowhere else. This card is about 30 years old. You know what I mean? And so and he was teaching, as you can see in the middle, right? He was teaching capoeira, and he was nice with it. You know what I mean? He wasn't no sucker. I could tell you that on straight up and down. He was dangerous. You know what I mean? But he was a humble dude. You know what I mean? Trying to get into acting, and it was sometimes we would see each other. When I first came to LA, I was doing like, how you go out, you do extra work on films, videos, and stuff like that. I would see Edmond out, we would get cast for the same stuff or be extras in the same stuff. You know what I mean? Trying to get the music thing on, but hustling meantime and in between time, right? And so, like I said, I take you back to this because this is so important. This is his being in the game, being in California Love, one of 2Pac Shakur's most iconic videos. Here you see Edmond right here with the legend himself, 2Pac Shakur. He also put out a book. It's called The Journey of the Island Jewel. You might want to check it out. It's on Amazon. It's called The Journey of the Island Jewel. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, when I come, I'm trying to bring exclusive game. Like I say, once again, hit the like button, hit the share button. Yeah, absolutely, Rolando G. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Like I said, yeah, Edmond was a cool dude, right? So hold on, check it out. We're gonna get into a little bit more. Because like I said, I don't really think people understand like how close he was to the game. Watch this one, y'all. Watch this one. Boom. Check it out now. Edmond and Little Kim. This is another video that he had did, right? With Little Kim. He was, like one of the male guys in her video or whatever you call what you got, male eye catchers or whatever. That's Edmond and Little Kim, if you will. So, like I said, the crazy part about this man is his story. You know what I mean? And then now to be caught up in the Diddy situation, right? Now to be caught up in the Diddy situation is kind of crazy because when you think about, the overall, the years that one puts into the game, trying to get on, trying to get into the game, trying to get into acting. Do movies, you know what I mean? Like most people didn't know that he was involved with the 2Pac situation or whatever have you, to now automatically now be caught up in the Cassie situation. Like I said, I don't know if he's going to be testifying in the court hearing, right? But yeah, this is crazy, man. Yeah, absolutely, Rolando G. Most people don't know. What's up, Sticky? CC Black. He said, even this guy, the Escort, knows the Brazilian martial arts capoeira. Absolutely, yeah. You seen it on the card. Let me show you again. Check it out. Right here. Yeah. He was about it, right? But like I said, when I think about his story, when I look at with him and with the 2Pac thing, right? When I think about the story, I go back to what he used to tell us. You know how people come to LA, man, and they tell various stories and things like that. When you talk about like I said, and he talked about, him, he was homeless. And I mean, like I said, he used to sleep on the beach. He used to sleep on Venice Beach. Real talk. You know what I mean? Going on auditions, finds himself in America, homeless, California. He was a youth. He was a young kid back then, hired as a mime. Opportunities led to a host of, television, film, music videos, modeling. He did some modeling and things like that. At the height of his career, opportunities begin to slow down, though. You know what I mean? Certain people make it, and certain people get kind of washed out, right? Then he found himself caught up in the world of the exotic, where he became, a boy toy for a lot of, you know what I mean? And a slave to people with ill-gotten intentions. You know what I mean? The life, basically, it's crazy life, man. And so this is one of the people who was Diddy Escorts. He was the one that they talked about that would deal with the escorts when he would come to L.A. Like I said, and let me show you another joint, that I had. I mean, like I said, I had these joints, man. It was 30 years old. Here's another joint. This is another card that he gave me. Every time he would see me, man, I got new headshots, man. I'm, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? This is another one. I had to go through my business cards and stuff. Like I had like 500-600 business cards. I was out there networking, you know what I mean? And like I said, when I would hit Venice Beach, he would always run up on me. Like I said, me, Alfred Seymour, and like I said, he was trying to get it on. Alfred and Seymour, they had something going on over there with I think it was Paramount at the time. They had done a TV show, you know what I mean? And like I said, Edmond, he was trying to get it on. He was trying to, come up, as an actor. And like I said, he did do some work, but the cold part about the game is he got caught up. He got caught up. But now I guess if you want to look at it in a strange kind of way, hey, I think this is the most famous that he gonna ever become. And like I said, you heard it here first, because most people didn't know this. Like I said, you heard it here first. Straight Game TV. Nobody could tell you until they told you, yeah, he was in California Love, and him and 2Pac right here. The funny part was I was thinking about it, I was like, yo, just the connection and how that works, and then, him being hired by Diddy to be with Cassie and Diddy Watch and all of these other things, man, and how it got to that particular point, in life where, he became involved in that lifestyle, if you will. You know what I mean? From what I know, yeah, he's still alive. From what I know, I know the story on the thing. From they say something about GHB. I don't know if that was the real story or the story that what's the name? Because like I said, the last that I seen, I don't know if he's testifying or they trying to push another narrative like, yo, he's what's the name? He's yeah. But from what I understand and what I know, you can actually go on his Instagram. He got an Instagram, and he was recording the fires of earlier this year. So, like I said, you know what I mean? I don't think he probably talking to many people at this particular time. I don't know if they trying to, hide him out because he gonna testify. Yeah, or whatever. Miss Ashley, how you doing? What's up? You say what? What'd you say? He said Bruce Leroy's other brother. My bad, Mr. Richards. Y'all funny. Yeah, but like I said, I wanted to bring you all this exclusive, right? And so, like I said, from what I knew about the guy, you know what I mean? Cool guy, very respectful, very humble, you know what I mean? A nice dude, man. And, when I looked, like I said, I was checking out the Art of Dialogues, his ex, and he had put up they had released all of the pictures of the people that was the escorts in the Diddy situation. And, I was like, wow, and the first thing that popped up, I was like, oh shit. I'm like, yo, that's my man. I'm like, what the, and like I said, I haven't seen him for years. It's been years. You know what I mean? And you don't really know where people go because everybody kind of go on with their life, whether they got married, have kids, all of those things from that perspective. Like I said, and the first thing I see, Exhibit 2A, you know what I mean? 619, government exhibit. But yeah, from what I understand, he's still living, and yeah, and then the 2Pac connection, like I said, because you got very few people that was in a part of that California Love video, right? You know what I mean? And so when I bring people back to that, I'm like, dude, I'm like, the connection is hella crazy, because when you say, oh, okay, most people are like, yeah, okay, I see that, whatever. But then, like I said, Edmond, Laurent, one of Diddy's and Cassie's escorts, right? And, now he's going to be famous as he ever wanted to be. I saw a little press release they just did for the little the book that he put out. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's on Amazon, y'all. It's called The Journey of an Island Jewel. Edmond, Laurent, and Lee Broadwater, right? Like I said, you know what I mean? And like I said, back in the day, like, dude, he was like, it looked like he was just like, man, it's crazy. Like, dude, like he lift weights, but he didn't. It was kind of like natural, man. It was kind of like natural. I'm like, yo, and he used to walk down Venice Beach, man, with Speedos on. I used to trip off that shit. I was like, this dude crazy, right? But like I said, I guess marketing and promotion, when you homeless, and he was homeless, he didn't have nothing, he was sleeping on the beach, sleeping in cars, and the whole 9 yards, man, you would never think of that, by looking at him. You just wouldn't. You would think like, damn, he look like he come from money, you know what I mean? But you just don't know people's story. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, when it all boils down, you don't know what people's story is. And like I said, yo, here it is again, him and 2Pac, man, in 1996, man, California Love video shoot. You know what I mean? So you take that history and you say, oh man, like boom, but all of those things, like a lot of things, will slow down. You know what I mean? Like I said, this is one of the first business cards that he had, right? That he gave me. Like I said, you see at the bottom of, he was a personal trainer and he was doing capoeira. You know what I mean? And then you see over here, the moniker stuck with him, right? This picture right here, dude, is, like I said, this card right here, I have defined it in my business cards, right? This card right here is about 30 years old. 30, I would say you're 30 some odd years old. And you see in the indictment, they call him the Islander, right? And then on the card right here, you see Island Man. So you see how close those two were in proximity to each other, like I said. But yeah, as far as I know, like I said, I mean, he living the good life, you know what I mean? Still going to the Caribbean. You go to his Instagram page, he's still chilling in the Caribbean, doing whatever he's doing, living life, as far as I understand it to be. So yeah, and then you go to this one. This how this is him, and like I said, once again, him and Little Kim in the video shoot. Because like I said, a lot of those, when they looking for like the male guy, the handsome, the hunk, or whatever you want to call it, you know what I mean? He was one of them guys. You know what I mean? He got casted in a lot of videos and stuff like that. You see him and Little Kim right here. So, and then you think Little Kim, Puffy, how close people are to the game. You know what I mean? Just in that proximity. Like I said, and I'm gonna read you a little live excerpt from his what's the name? Like I said, here's another one right here. This is another one of the cards. Another business card that he had gave me. Like, I got new headshots. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, yo, and so check this out. Watch this. So check this out. Let me see. And this one is dealing in particular with the book, right? This is straight from the book. This is an excerpt dealing with the situation involving Diddy and Cassie in that situation. It says, still my dream. They say three's a crowd. This is the chapter of the title in the book. This one right here is called Three's a Crowd. It's chapter 12, right? It says, still my dream and aspirations to be an actor did not diminish. I had hope that things would change. It said it just escalated from one escort arrangement to another. Many times clients would order me and the company would send other people, right? So he basically, and I would say pimping, that, he said he worked for a company, an escort company, ladies and gentlemen. So in essence, he was a high end escort. You know what I mean? He wasn't like, you know what I mean? He was a high end escort. You know, from what I'm reading in the book, escalated from one arrangement to another. Many times, clients would order him. They would order him. They would want him as the escort, right? Me and the company would send other people. So on this occasion, a man wanted someone to dance for his wife. They're talking about Diddy and Cassie. He's talking about it in the book, right? Not mentioning names, though. Wanted the man to dance for his wife, but he wanted to be in the room as it happened, right? So this one particular time he's talking about in the book that a man wanted him to dance for his wife, right? But he wanted to be in the book. Now, I don't know if this part right here is one of those parts where, you know, Diddy is actually ordering the escort, because he's saying in the book that a man wanted him to dance for his wife. Now, I don't know if this was, you know, prior to or once he got in the room with Diddy and Cassie, right? And wanted to dance for his wife. He said most of other workers did not want this job, right? So most of the other male escorts didn't want this job. They were willing to dance for the wives, but they preferred that the husband watch from another room, right? Me, I did not care if the husband was in the room. It paid more. So he was, like I said, I told you he was a hustler. He was always a hustler, man, whether it came to doing music videos, whatever he was doing, you know, acting, whatever. He was always trying to, like I said, he was homeless. He came to America homeless with that dream of trying to become an actor, of trying to, you know, get in the game and do all of those things. Like I said, I seen that, witnessed that firsthand with my own eyes. You know what I mean? For about 3 or 4 years. You know what I'm saying? And so he said, me, I did not care if the husband was in the room. It paid more. So I took the call. And this willingness is how I became a boy toy for a very famous couple, right? He said he called it a boy toy. He called it what it is, right? He said, this is how I became a boy toy for a very famous couple and was on call for their demand. He said, we will just call them Patrick and Cynthia. So in the book, he calls them Patrick and Cynthia. And so you can see the Patrick in the P is for Puffy, right? And the Cynthia in the C is for Cassie, right? Arrangements were set up at various places, such as the Beverly Hills Hotel, condos, the Standard on Sunset Boulevard, which was right next to the House of Blues. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? When the House of Blues was still there, the Standard on Sunset Boulevard, and private bungalows. Every time we met, Patrick would take my phone to prevent me from taking pictures or recording, right? So every time they met, Puffy would take his phone to prevent him from taking pictures and recording. On about the 9th or 10th time of us getting together, so he had got with them, Puffy and Cassie, over 9 or 10 times. He's explaining in his book, right? You know what I mean? It's called The Journey of an Island Jewel, and it's actually on Amazon, ladies and gentlemen. It's about 83 pages. Like I said, it's a lot of game I'm gonna put y'all up on, man. Like as far as good books and things like that. He said on or about the 9th or 10th time of us getting together, I got a call about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I did not expect the call and had drunk my pre-workout stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like I say, workout, but he said pre-workout stuff. I needed the money and went anyway. When I arrived at the Beverly Hills Hotel, I would check in under an anonymous code name like Mr. Black or Mr. White, right? That he would check in under an anonymous code name. I would wait in the room. Porn, he said porn was usually already on. This particular time, I waited for them for about 2 hours, right? That's just a snippet from the book, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, the joint's 83 pages long. It's on Amazon. And like I said, when I seen the picture on the Art of Dialogue's Twitter handle, I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, wow. But they say life is 6 degrees of separation, right? You know what I mean? And so, like I said, once again, you get back into it. Here he is, man. Edmond Laurent, man, my friend, man. Like I said, wow, it's crazy. Now caught up in the Cassie Diddy situation. Like I say, don't know if he gonna testify. Like I said, he ain't returning my call as of yet. Tried to reach out to him, but like I said, more importantly, yeah, this is crazy, man. This is crazy. So like I said, if he ever wanted, Edmond, you know how you always wanted to be famous, man. He always wanted to be famous and doing his thing and getting his money. Like I said, I wouldn't say that this is the reason that he should have been famous for, but like I said, he done a lot of work. So, that's to prove the journey. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just about that one thing or another. Like I said, here he is right here, as a government exhibit, and then you go right here, and here he is, him and 2Pac in 1996 on the California Love video shoot. Crazy, right? Crazy. You know what I mean? But like I said, he was doing a lot of acting, man. Done a couple of movies. Like I said, put out his own book in regards to what it was. And like I said, so I guess he couldn't talk about it or, speak on it from that perspective. Didn't mention Cassie or Puffy's name, but was it Cynthia and Patrick? You know what I mean? But like I said, here him and 2Pac right here, man. 1996, man. 1996. Like I said, this was one of the first business cards that he had gave me, man. Every time he would see me, like, yo, blah, 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 what's going on? What's going on? And, and I really didn't know, like, until he began to say, like, I'm homeless. I'm like, I don't live nowhere. I'm like, what you mean? Like, dude, you know what I mean? And, yeah, and you see personal trainer, and he taught capoeira. And like I said, he stuck with the moniker. They call him, in the indictment, they call him the Islander, right? But, you see this business card, like I told you, this business card right here is all of 30 years old. Like I said, I had to go through my business cards. I had to go through boxes, and I'm like, yo, I still, you know what I mean? Once I seen the picture on All the Dialogues X, I was like, I still got the picture, his business card, boom, boom, boom. And you see, he was going under Island Man at that time, right? You know what I mean? Teaching capoeira, doing personal training. It's funny that Cassie's now husband is a personal trainer when you think about the big picture, right? Like I say, get the likes up, y'all. Get the share button up, y'all. Appreciate y'all coming in here on the Memorial Day. And so it's funny, like I said, Edmond was doing personal training, then Cassie's now husband, winds up being a personal trainer, if you will, right? It's crazy, right? Like I said, this was one of the first business cards that he gave me. And then, like I said, to show the work that he was putting in, all of the videos that he was doing, him and Little Kim, before Kim had, this was like when she was like early, I forgot. Y'all probably could tell me what video this was, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, but that's Lil Kim and Edmond, man. He was out there. He was putting in work. He said, Feli speaks. He said, I was hiring him too. Now, I didn't have to hire him, Playboy. Like I said, I hadn't seen Edmond in years. You know what I mean? But like I said, Edmond was, you know what I mean? I didn't have to hire him. He was doing all right, brother. It's Ashley 415 Matthews. If this was Hugh Hefner, this wouldn't happen. Absolutely, it wouldn't be happening, right? Like I said, another business joint right here. You say if it was Hugh Hefner, it wouldn't be happening. Like I said, y'all, like I said, if you wanted to be famous, right? Let's say like this, and how most people nowadays, they don't put in no work, right? They don't put in no work. You know what I mean? You can go on, yeah. I ain't worried about you, Feli, man. I know you fucking around. I ain't tripping. But most people, nowadays we got social media, right? They don't put in no work. The chick could be, she Instagram famous for just being pretty. But like I said, I gotta give Edmond his props, dude. When dude came out here, man, I'm gonna tell you, look, check this out. Check this out, Feli. This is some real talk right here. Edmond, listen, Feli, check this out. Edmond was such a handsome young man that the pretty girls down at Venice Beach would get mad at him because he didn't want to talk to him. You know what I mean? Like they were like, who is that guy? And like he barely spoke good English because his accent, he had a heavy Caribbean accent, right? You know what I mean? So he barely spoke. So he was kind of like shy. kind of like, standoffish, and they thought he was being conceited, but that's just how he was. You know what I mean? He like I said, and then you look back behind the scenes and you say, well, damn, he was homeless. He probably didn't want to talk to a girl because he ain't had nowhere to take her. You know what I mean? Yeah, come on with me. We're going to have lunch underneath the pier over here in Santa Monica. You know what I mean? For all intents and purposes, right? Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, man. Yeah, I wouldn't say the casting couch, but like I said, he said he became a male escort. He got turned out. The money was good. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden he met Cassie and Diddy. So Cassie and Diddy, for whatever reason, how he met Cassie and Diddy, they were using some kind of service, because he said it in his book, right? The book title on Amazon, y'all. Like I said, you heard it here. The Journey of an Island Jewel, right? By Edmond and Lee Broadwater, right? And so, yeah, like I said, this is what it was. This is what it was, man. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring this to you. Like I said, I know court start again tomorrow, and it's going to be interesting. Like I said, so we see Edmond come up there to testify because, like I said, we got, 6 more weeks? They saying, they were saying 6 to 8 weeks, right? So 6 more weeks. Like I said, you get back to the game, it's like, boom. You go from this, you go, I said, you go from everything else, and then you wind up being drug into some shit about, being an escort, and so on and so forth. And somebody just said in the chat, they was like, yo, if this was Hugh Hefner, it wouldn't have happened. Absolutely, positively so. What you say? Yeah, absolutely, man. How many witnesses can perjure themselves? Like I said, more importantly, a lot of this stuff didn't really have anything to do with, anything illegal per se. They basically go into somebody's bedroom. You know what I mean? So, like I said, if they brung up the 2 escorts that they brung up so far, you can imagine what they might got coming up next, because they introduced all those photos, right? So we can only imagine what they got coming up next, right? So like I said, for the people that just coming in the chat, man, when how I found out about Edmond was Diddy and Cassie's escort. Like I said, I looked at the Art of Dialogue, his ex thing, and they had all the pictures of the photos, man, and I seen my man Edmond. I was like, damn. He always wanted to be famous, but like I said, he had done a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? And like I said, he put a book out, all of that, but he got caught up with the Cassie and Diddy thing, man. He went from this, I wouldn't even call it a mugshot, right? I wouldn't call it a mugshot, from that right there, to, California Love with 2Pac Shakur. You know what I mean? Pictures worth 1,000 words. I guess doing California Love, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I say, back in the day, like during this time back in the day, it wasn't nothing. Like now, we 30 some odd years removed from what that is, the 2Pac thing, the legendary status. Like I said, it was nothing. Like I said, and like I said, when you think about the big picture, it just it was what it was. So like I say, he went from, doing movies, doing a little bit of acting, doing a little bit modeling California Love, and you go wind up here, as a government exhibit in Diddy's case, you know what I mean? as a hired escort, right? Then to here, right? And then you go from there. Like I said, this right here is one of his first business cards that he had gave me. You know what I mean? You see how cut up he was, you know what I mean, back in the day, right? So all of, like I said, when as a matter of fact, this picture right here, the one with the no shirt on, this picture right here was ticking down in Venice Beach. You can see the background for the people who might be in the chat that's from California. This right here was taken at Venice Beach right there. You see the palm trees in the background. And then the middle one was taken up there by the Hollywood sign. You can see the Hollywood sign vaguely right here in the background while he doing like the capoeira pose. You know what I mean? But like I said, for people like, just information-wise wanted to know, he wasn't no sucker, though. He knew that capoeira. He was dangerous, man. You know what I mean? Like real talk. So, let's see what. Then, like I say, you go right here. That's him and Lil Kim. You like I say, you see why I guess why Diddy and them wanted him. You know what I mean? Be like, yo. Then he was like, in his book he said he was with them about 9 or 10 times. So they was freaking off for real. Cause the other dude said that he was with Diddy and them. He did it like 10 or 12 times. You know what I mean? And I mean, for all intents and purposes, the people that they did know or didn't know, right? You know what I'm saying? So now I don't know if they're gonna call him yet, Rolando. To be perfectly honest with you, yeah. He said, "Heard what the last track." Yo, y'all funny, man. Y'all funny. Like I said, yo, this is him right again. Like I say, one of the other cards that he gave me, man. Like I said, but it's funny how life, man, can take you down hella journeys, man. I just wanted to bring this to you guys, man. Like I say, you heard it here first, man. And like I said, more importantly, and going to get the like I said, I'm actually gonna buy this book. I'm actually gonna buy this book because I want to read a little bit more about what he's talking about, the Diddy thing, right? The Journey of an Island Jewel, right? The Journey of an Island Jewel. It's on Amazon. Trying to look see when it was published. I think it might have been published just recently. Let me see. Yeah, like I said, the book got, for the people that done checked it out, it got 5 stars, ladies and gentlemen. The book got 5 stars. So I want to read a little bit more about this Diddy situation and what that is. Because it kind of cuts off. It's kind of they put out like a little teaser, in the book about the book. He said, Miss Ashley, what's that way thing? You funny. Miss Ashley, you a fool. What's up, Ashley? How you doing, though? Good to see you. Rolando G. Thanks, somebody missed the point. Miss Ashley, I was saying the same thing. He resembles a Timac. Yeah, he do it kind of a little bit like that, right? You know what I mean? But like we used to, like I said, to be perfectly honest, y'all, we used to clown him because he would come. I'm telling you, he would come down Venice Beach, man. He would come, and this ain't nothing odd to see down Venice Beach. You at the beach, right? You would see people in swimming trunks and stuff like that, right? But this dude wouldn't be swimming or nothing. He would come down Venice Beach and be walking down Venice Beach and he would be like shiny and shit, right? I guess that's probably why Diddy and him like that. He would be shiny, all muscled out and shit, right? We'd be like, yo, what's up? Where you going at, man? We would be clowning him, man. We, like I said, and then my man Alfred and Seymour, they was doing comedy on the beachfront. So, their whole thing was comedy, and you know what I mean? So, if he came around, they'd be like, hold on, look at this guy, right? Like, they'd be like, Hercules, right? They used to clown him, right? So it was funny, man. Like I said, them was the days, though, man. Them was the days, man. Back in the day, man, on Venice Beach, man. So like I said, yeah, man, I just wanted to bring y'all this information, man. So, you go from this right here, or better yet, should I say, let's go back, right? You start from here, trying to get into the game, giving out business cards, going. And like I said, we would do extra work on films, movies, videos, and all of that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Just getting extra money out in Hollywood, and tell you, what you, like I said, my thing was music more so than anything, right? So, Edmond, Laurent, he started here. You know what I mean? You see the video with Little Kim, you know what I mean, doing his thing, right? Then you go, like I said, this is another one of his business cards, what he was doing when he first came out here, you know what I mean? And then you go right here, him and 2Pac, you know what I mean, being in the California Love video, you know what I'm saying? And then, life come and hit you again, boom. Here it is today. He involved with the Diddy trial. Working now as a male escort. Say it's male prostitute if you want. You know what I mean? Sebastian. So is it really him with Little Kim too? Come on, man, stop with that. We don't do no faking, man. Like I told you, I know the guy. You know what I mean? And like I said, this is what he was doing. That's nothing though. Like I said, a lot of people today, man, they don't understand. Like I said, if you wasn't around during the 90s, 94, 95, 96, you know what I mean? You wouldn't have understood. Like, it wasn't really nothing. You look at it now because you on YouTube and you on, on social media. And it's like, yeah, yeah, it's a whole different world. To you, it's a whole different world. To people like myself and people that was, getting their feet wet. Like I said, man, I got so many stories that I already done shared. The Bar One and Hollywood Athletic Club, the House of Blues. You know what I mean? Bowie State University back in Maryland when I first met 2Pac. Like I said, and like I said, I had to go and look up these old business cards, but I still had them because like I say, I just had them because all of the business cards that I collected over the years. I'm gonna drop some game on you like this. Check this out. When I took there's a picture out there of me and 2Pac somewhere, right? When I took the picture of me and 2Pac, it was the guy that took the picture. He actually gave me, and I don't know if I threw it away, because I'm not knowing 2Pac gonna get killed like shortly after that. You know what I mean? We at the House of Blues, and so the dude that took the picture, back in the day, it was like a 35 millimeter camera. It wasn't one of the Polaroids, like you take out and you fan it off and you get your picture right then and there. Because he worked for, I think, some kind of news organization, some kind of company or whatever, or his own company. So we walking up by the motherfucking foundation room at the House of Blues. Was that August 11th, 1996, and the dude take the picture, and I told the dude, I said, yo, I want the picture. He was like, yeah, I charge $100, and he had a card, but on the front of his card, he had like how you have an old number and you got your number changed. So what he did was he flipped the card over and then he wrote his new number on the card. It was like, yo, here. And like I said, before you know it, what's that? That was August 11th. 2Pac was shot on September 7th. Less than 30 days later. You know what I mean? That's how crazy the game was. Like I said, I never thought to look at the what's the name card. Didn't think about none of that because it was just so crazy at that particular time. So the brother asked, Sebastian and Eli asked, is that really him with Pac? Absolutely. And like I said, if you can't tell, look again. Yeah, that's him. I mean, you can clearly see it if you look, if you got good eyes, right? You know what I mean? And then you can see the blurriness and then the people in the background of the photo. You know what I mean? Come on, man. But like I said, once again, if you're dealing with people who want to doubt or want to, every time they see something, man, it's this, because the internet got you so tainted, man. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I ain't gonna bring you nothing that I know that's gonna be some fake shit. My reputation on the line. Like I said, once again, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna show you this right here. Peep this. I just brung this to y'all, man, because I just got up on this also. Peep this. Look, if you haven't gotten it, right here, look. Behind the Walls with 2Pac Shakur, right? By the author Donald Richardson, and he's no relation to me. That's just his last name. He's no relation to me. Donald Richardson did 23 years in and out of penitentiaries in New York. On this particular time right here, when 2Pac came to Rikers after he was sentenced for the situation involving the young lady Ayanna Jackson, the dude, the author Donald Richardson, was kind of held 2Pac down. You know what I mean? While he was there, like I said, if you haven't heard about this story, like I said, because I didn't know about it, right? Till recently, I didn't know about the story. If you haven't heard about this, go pick this book up, because there's a lot of stuff in there. You know what I mean? When we talk about the stuff that we didn't know, you know what I mean, from other people that, like, unlike the little fake stories, the Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. and all them people out here, like I said, this guy right here, Donald Richardson, really lived it. And, like, he got some poignant stories about 2Pac coming through Rikers Island and what it was really like, you know what I mean, 2Pac behind bars, at least in that part of his jail stint, you know what I mean? Like I said, this book right here is a must-have if you haven't. Like I said, I just did an interview with the author, Donald Richardson, on the Art of Dialogue that's going to be released soon, you know what I mean? And so, like I said, if you haven't heard about the book, go check it out, because it's interesting, because it was a lot of stuff that I didn't know, you know what I mean? But like I said, back to the what's the name? Like I said, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to bring you this, exclusively, and to talk about some real information. All right, like I said, your boy DELRAY, man. I appreciate each and every one of y'all coming through on this Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day. If you had any loved ones who passed away in the military or was in the military and served our country and passed away, like I said, may they rest in peace. Nah, I mean, like I said, Tavares, ain't no reason to look at Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. no more. Ain't no reason. Ain't no reason. Like I said, we exposed what it was to expose. Like most of the stories were false. You know what I mean? It's only time for real information, substantive information and stories and things like that. Where most people, like I said, who don't know and don't understand, if I told this story, best believe Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. would try to come behind and be like, oh, because, yeah, I was, the guy Edmond's manager. He'll come with some bullshit, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's a lot of people out here, faking the funk, man. Absolutely, Miss A. He's done and exposed. Ain't no, the cold part, they ain't not even on camera. They putting up fake pictures and, then he going live and like, Reggie, did you hear about, Suge Knight farted and did you smell it? Did you hear it? Yeah, I did. Smell like he was eating corn or something. I don't, man, come on, man. Fuck is going on? You know what I mean? It's like, what? A lot of times it's like, that's what you get. You ain't getting nothing substantive, nothing firsthand. This story I'm telling you about Edmond Lawrence, I'm telling you as a matter of fact. Like I said, once again, you see, and I showed you, and I showed them, check it out, look, for the naysayers, right? I showed them, look, boom, hold on. You ain't gonna see, like I said, him and 2Pac, but check it out. You ain't gonna see this nowhere. You're not gonna see this card nowhere. You're not gonna see it. Yeah, it's 30 years old. I had to go through boxes and boxes of stuff to pull this up right here, right? You know what I mean? You're not gonna see this right here. You're not gonna see that right there. This early in the game, like I said, you see they call him the Islander in the case, right? They call him the Islander, right? There you go. But you're gonna see this, and like I said, I can't wait to see, if he testified, you know what I mean, in the case. It's gonna be interesting, ladies and gentlemen. It's definitely gonna be interesting. So, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys. Yo, I'm gonna be broadcasting live tomorrow when they get it popping with another day in court. I thank everybody for coming through. Yeah, Diddy clearly is a fruit. Yeah. Diddy is he's done some or should I said he's been exposed for doing some outlandish things, I would say. Some things that are unbecoming. I won't use the word weird or anything like that, but he's done some outlandish things, man, that for all intents and purposes of the image that he portrayed, right? We know now that, yeah, all of that was just that. And like I said, he liked what he liked, but yeah, to each his own, man. Like I said, he got his life to deal with. Like I said, we got our lives to deal with. And I'm trying to do the best with the life that God gave me, you know what I mean, until my time is up. Yeah, Black Cash Dreams, what's happening? Hit the like button, hit the share button, ladies and gentlemen. They didn't know nothing about this. You're going to hear other people try to come and be like, yeah, the guy, one of Diddy's dudes, he worked with 2Pac and blah. Yeah, like I said, you heard it here first because I could give it to you because I knew it, right? Like I said, once I seen that, I just had to do some research and get the cards. And like I said, I was like, man, I know I got, you know what I mean? I know I got the, because like I said, once I came with the story, I had to give you something substantive that nobody else could give you. And those two cards right there, they're not going to be able to give you that. The story about the Venice Beach, they're not going to be able to give you that. You know what I mean? And like I said, we'll see. If I get in touch with old boy, we can see if he can do an interview. I don't think he probably can move like that right now with this case going on, understanding that he might be called to testify. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. So, Miss Ashley said, I'll be your freakazoid. All they got to do is wind you up. They said they'll wind you up. He said, Rolando G say, Mr. DELRAY Richardson, I'm going to be honest. Was 2Pac right in that Vibe interview back in 1996 where 2Pac did say Diddy is into something he wasn't going to? Yeah, like I said, you know what, Rolando, I'm not even going to sit here and try to speculate. but Pac may have knew some things, you know what I mean, that Diddy might was into, you know, back then, from that perspective. Like I said, if you do it, like I said, a friend of mine tell me, if you do it somewhere, you do it everywhere. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, the money kind of probably, money doesn't really, I said money sometimes show you who a person really is, even on a larger scale, if you will, on a larger level, for the most part. But like I said, this right here, interview right here, or should I say, podcast right here, is exclusive. Like I said, no one, you heard it here first. Let's put it that way. You heard it here first. And but yeah, Rolando, I think, Pac may have been on to something. He may have known some things that we didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you the story about once again when we were at damn, I can't think of the club right now. Oh man, Peanuts. When we was at Peanuts in Hollywood, I told you, you know what I mean? Pac was had the two girls in back of the Rolls Royce. You know what I mean? You can go check on my video, through my videos for that one. You know what I mean? So like I said, you know what I mean? It's L.A., man. It's L.A., man. And you know what I'm saying? I like, real players do what players do. I'm not gonna equivocate Pac with Diddy. I'm just not gonna do that. You know what I mean? Pac was him, and it was him. You know what I mean? Like I said, and yeah. So for the most people that don't really know, if you wasn't in L.A. or been to L.A. and lived out here and really understand, like, when you doing your thing, you know what I mean? You could pretty much have what you want, and sometimes that could be a bad thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes people go a little bit overboard. You know what I mean? Sometimes people start to do things because they're getting money that they normally wouldn't do. You know what I mean? Because, now you can buy anybody you want. You know what I mean? Now you can get people to do things that they normally wouldn't do. You know what I mean? For what Diddy was paying Edmond, and all of the other escorts, you know what I'm saying? What, $5,000, whatever. Like I say, most people making that in a month, and they doing it in one night, and you getting paid to, have sex with a beautiful woman, if you will, from that perspective. So, like I said, more importantly, that's the thing that really trips me out more so than anything about this whole situation. Is that from that perspective, when you deal with it when you think about it from on that level, that's the part that I trip off the most. You know what I mean? When I think of it from that perspective, I don't, know anybody else, doing it from on that level. But yeah. Like I said, for the people who just come in, and I'm gonna read this excerpt. I'm gonna leave with this excerpt from Edmond Laurent's book. Once again, this is how he first got in contact with Diddy and him and Cassie, but they changed the names, right? If you get the book, right, it's chapter 12, Three's a Crowd. The chapter's called Three's a Crowd. You know what I mean? And he said basically, once again, still, my dreams and aspirations to be an actor did not diminish. Like I told you, he came out here to be an actor. You know what I mean? I seen that struggle. Like, we go on different, casting calls. Like, you go to casting, like they'll say, well, we looking for this many people for this movie. You know what I mean? Or this many people for this video, or whatever. And they pay you, you know what I mean? Whatever the payment was for that, whatever. And I see him out there, but most of the time I see him down at Venice Beach. Like I said, he was homeless and he was living on the beach. Like I said, it's summertime. You can, it's hot as hell out in California. You know what I mean? A lot of people slept on the beach. But like I said, I didn't know at the time. And when he told me, I was like, oh, wow. Like, yo, what? You know what I mean? Like, it was hard to believe. When you look at him, it's hard to believe. But you just never know what people going through, right? So chapter 12, I'm sorry. 3 is a crowd. It said, still, my dreams and aspirations to be an actor did not diminish. I had hoped that things would change. It just escalated from one escort arrangement to another. Many times clients would order me, and the company that he worked for, the escort company that he worked for, would send other people. So on this occasion, a man wanted someone to dance for his wife, but he wanted to be in the room as it happened. He's talking about Diddy and Cassie. So on this particular occasion, you know, a man wanted somebody to dance for his wife, but the man wanted to be in the room while it happened, right? He said most of the other workers did not want this job, right? They were willing to dance for the wives, but they preferred that the husband watch from another room. So as you can see, this was a prevalent thing. You know, a lot of rich people like to, like I said, that ain't the first time I heard this. A lot of rich people, they like men, they like to, whatever they got, you know, they suffering from issues or whatever they, you know, they don't mind watching another man have relations with their wife, right? Because the wife not going to leave, but if she want that, like, yo, it's like, okay, cool. All right, that's what you want? Okay, cool. You know what I mean? As strange as it might seem, you know what I mean? It's a swinger lifestyle, you know what I mean? And so basically said that they were willing to dance for the wives, but they preferred that the husband watch from another room. Me, I didn't care. If the husband was in the room, it paid more. So I took the call. And this willingness is how I became a boy toy for a very famous couple and was on call for their demand. So basically, Edmond, before people really knew what his name was, they call him the Islander, Edmond Laurent basically is saying that the reason why he was on call and on call for Diddy's and Cassie's demand was the fact that he didn't mind that Diddy was in the room watching, right? Okay, so that's how he became, you know, he said we will just call them Patrick and Cynthia. I like how he kept the P and the C in there, right? Patrick, Puffy, Cynthia, Cassie, right? Arrangements were set up at various places such as the Beverly Hills Hotel, condos, the Standard on Sunset, and private bungalows. Every time we met, Patrick would take my phone to prevent me from taking pictures or recording. On or about the 9th or 10th time of us getting together, I got a call about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I did not expect the call and had drunk my pre-workout stuff, but I needed the money and went anyway. When I arrived at the Beverly Hills Hotel, I would check in under an anonymous code name like Mr. Black or Mr. White. I would wait in the room. Pornography was usually already on, so somebody set up the room, you know what I mean? So, and when he checked in, you know what I mean, I guess however that worked, this particular time, I waited for them for about 2 hours, and then Cynthia came or whatever, you know, and that was what was popping, man. Yeah, like I said, the book is interesting, man. The book is interesting. So, you know, it seems like to me, like I said, I'm gonna get it, and I can read the rest of it and probably expound a little bit more on or about that. But yeah, it seems like you know, I think dude might testify, man. I think he might be one of the people that's gonna testify. Salute to the chat, absolutely. He said T.I. and Tiny type. See, I ain't even gonna do that. I'm not even gonna go out there and put it out there like that. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, once again, you know, I could see where they're trying to go with it, but nah, they just like having free goals. Diddy like watching Cassie get hit by another dude, different dudes, you know what I mean? Because I think it got him off, you know what I'm saying? And with that being said, yeah, that's just what it was, you know what I mean? I think the RICO thing comes into play with Cassie, you know, basically saying with the interstate trafficking and paying guys or whatever. But like I said, so far in the case, all we've heard is that Cassie gave out money. You know what I mean? But if they gave her immunity, then they don't really care about that. And that's one of the crazy things about the law. So yeah, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys, you know, coming through. And like I said, once again, man, you know, where life can take you from. And 2, we go right here. Look, I'm gonna start it from the bottom again. We right here. When you trying to get in the game, you're giving out your business cards and you're trying to, you know, come up. Edmond Laurent's trying to come up. Like I said, you ain't gonna see this business card or nothing like that nowhere else. Like I said, it's exclusive. It's 30 years old. Like I said, I had this You know what I mean? Edmond was a friend of mine. Like I said, I consider him a friend of mine. I hadn't seen him in a while, but when I seen him on the Art of Dialogues thing, man, it was like, whoa. You know what I mean? And then you go to here, right? You see he was doing videos with Little Kim. That's him and Little Kim. You know what I mean? And then you go from here, this is another business card, like I said, when he was doing personal training and teaching capoeira and all of those other things, right? And modeling and stuff like that. And then you go right here, once again, and he was in the California Love video shoot with 2Pac, him and 2Pac right here next to each other. You know what I mean? And then it ends right here. You know, will this be the end or will this be a new beginning? And like I said, you know, a lot of people sometimes they can take this situation and capitalize off of it. You know what I mean? He got the little book out there, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, hopefully people start to read that and understand what his struggle was. Like I said, when you read the book, you understand, you know, or the synopsis of the book, you kind of understand what his struggle was. You know what I mean? And like he said, it says, quote, we are only here temporarily. Be the higher power. Look at the stars at night when you are out and thank God for light. The journey of the island jewel. You know what I mean? And like I said, it's a hell of a story though, man. Like I said, if you doing a story, right? Like you say, one of those Hollywood made for Hollywood stories. This one of them made for Hollywood stories, man. So like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope to hear from y'all tomorrow in the chat. You know what I mean? Thank everybody for coming through. He said, "Oh Lord, he was game without Pac. Y'all need to stop it." He said something fishy about Reggie and Shook. He said, as far as the men came with it, Ashley say, cashings on 100 an event. Good stuff, DELRAY. Hey, thank you guys thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, I appreciate you guys. Your boy DELRAY. Straight gang.
Life is like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.